Welcome to Daily Metal, where every day a different metal album gets dissected for your sadistic listening pleasure. I'm the heavy metal lawyer, Emma, and in this show, I'll talk about why the music in these albums is so good and where they fall in the history of music's most wretched genre. Today, June 10th, in 1986, the band Candlemass debuted with their album Epicus, Doomicus, Metallicus. I really cannot understate the influence of this album on metal, particularly for today's metal, where doom metal is often in the mix, or at the very least, a major influence. So, if we turn back the clock to 16 years prior to 1970, you have Black Sabbath's debut album and arguably the first doom metal album. So, how could Candlemass be so influential when the original metal sound was almost 2 decades old when they premiered? Well, they certainly were not at first. Once Black Sabbath laid the foundation for metal as a genre, the music became about getting more and more extreme. Metal has gone through waves of this, usually with a focus on a particular aspect of the music, like more and more extreme distortion, or more and more extreme screaming for vocals, or lower and lower tuning, which was definitely a thing when I was coming up in the metal scene in the early 2000s, particularly with sludge metal bands. Well, during the early days of metal, the extremity contest was focused on speed. Black Sabbath's doom metal gave way to Sad Wings of Destiny by Judas Priest, speeding things up a little bit, which gave way to Ace of Spades by Motorhead, speeding things up even more. This new wave of British heavy metal, and that's the name of the subgenre, by the way, NWOBHM, eventually gave way to thrash metal, which was even faster than the new wave of British heavy metal. Now, metal isn't the only genre of music where composers push things to extremes. And in all of the boundary pushing in music throughout history, there are artists that push so hard they break the boundary entirely. Beethoven did that for romantic music with his Fifth Symphony. Ornette Coleman did that with The Shape of Jazz to Come. And Slayer did that for speed in metal with their opus Rain in Blood, which, dramatic pause, was released the same year as Candlemass debuted with Epicus, Doomicus, Metallicus. Because for every artist who shattered boundaries by turning things up, there is usually a counterpart who instead returns to the heart of the music. Beethoven's counterpart was Wagner, who left behind Beethoven's romantic quest for heroic music that is more grand than any other, to instead focus on making music that was a complete work of art. And for that reason, his opera Tristan und Isolde is credited by some as starting modern music itself. I'm going to be a bit bold here and say that Epicus, Doomicus, Metallicus has a similar role for modern metal music. The other metal bands I've mentioned in this video, Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, Motorhead, Slayer, were chartering new paths for the genre. Candlemass was the first to go back to what Black Sabbath had started with and try to turn that into a complete work of art. Rather than trying to go even faster than Slayer, Candlemass instead went even slower than Black Sabbath. And rather than making the vocals more growling or screeching, the singing of Johann Langvist, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, is operatic. Unlike Wagner, though, Candlemass was a bit ahead of its time. Metalheads were not yet ready to try slowing things down, and the album sales for Epicus were so bad the band's record label dropped them. And the album's tongue-in-cheek dog Latin title, Epicus Doomicus Metallicus, and the lyrics addressing issues like depression and suicide also showed that they were ahead of their time in realizing metal could be used to express things other than blood raining from the sky. It wouldn't take long, though, for Candlemass to get the recognition it deserved. When the band released its second album, Nightfall, in 1987, it was so critically acclaimed that it caused critics and fans alike to revisit the band's first album, particularly the track Solitude, which quickly became a favorite at their concerts. Candlemass ensured that doom metal became its own celebrated subgenre of metal rather than just a stepping stone on the way to faster and heavier music. So, do you think Candlemass is the Wagner of metal? Or do you think that honor should instead go to Pentagram, St. Vitus, or Trouble, who, along with Candlemass, are considered the big four of doom metal? Let me know what you think in the comments, and I can prove I do read them because today's video was requested by a follower. I was going to cover this history on a video for Nightfall instead, but when y'all request something, I'll try to do it. So special thanks to Igor on Instagram. And if you like this video, please follow the channel because I'll be trying to put these out every day on the metal album that came out that day, why the music is so brutal, and where it fits in the history of the genre.